Welcome back to Inside Politics. Our guest today, Larry Woods, political strategist, Nashville attorney. Also, Steve Gill, conservative and Republican analyst, and also, once again, a radio talk show host in town. So, to boil down the Senate race, it comes down to whether Marsha Blackburn can make this into a race on national issues, Steve, particularly those pushing by President Trump, and how well Phil Bredesen can do on, I can get things done, I can reach across the aisle. Whoever's idea wins the best.
And Phil Bredesen has said that. He wants to make this a local Tennessee-focused issue between him and Marsha. He recognizes that if it becomes a national election, if it's about Donald Trump and national issues, he's likely in trouble. And that's why I think the Kavanaugh hearings don't help him. It has nationalized the race in a way that probably isn't best for Phil Bredesen.
No, I disagree. I agree with your analysis, but I disagree with your example of the Kavanaugh hearing yesterday. That Kavanaugh hearing yesterday is absolutely local. It's about every person in America whose family member or friend has been attacked and how the public reacted to that attack. It's a very local issue.
I think that's what Democrats want to argue, that if your sister got sexually molested, then Brett Kavanaugh had to have done it. This is only about whether or not in this particular case, in this particular woman 36 years ago, whether it happened or not, and there's still no evidence that it happened.
Because there's no FBI investigation.
The FBI has investigated. They have talked under oath to these two people. There's not a single witness who was there that could corroborate.
No, there was a letter from a lawyer. There was no investigation by the FBI.
The misleading by Kavanaugh yesterday was constantly referring to the marked judge statement sworn under felony, whatever that is, when in fact it's not signed by marked judge, it's signed by his lawyer. It's
when
worthless.
It's submitted to the Senate, it's under felony.
Gentlemen, the topics we're talking about today, we could spend the entire show on any one of them, but I want to quickly.
And we need to get back to your books.
I want to get into the
beer.
Well, I'm not bringing mine, but I want to get into the governor's race. If Phil Bredesen is running such a strong race against Marsha Blackburn, a Democrat against a Republican, why is the governor's race apparently so broad for Bill Lee? He's up in the best poll for Carl Dean. He's down 9 points.
It's what Steve said earlier. Phil Bredesen has 3 times run for statewide office, won twice as governor, did a good job as governor, so he's got the built-in experience, name recognition, reputation that Carl Dean still got to establish everywhere outside of Nashville.
The debates start next week for the gubernatorial candidates. What can Carl Dean do in order to narrow up the gap further? Do the debates have to be an important part of that?
Yeah, I think he has to hope that Bill Lee makes a major misstep to close that gap. I agree with Larry that the difference between the governor's race and the Senate race is that kind of statewide name recognition. What Bill Lee is pulling is that base Republican support across the state. And frankly, Marsha Blackburn will get coattails from Bill Lee and from Tim Burchett running over in Knoxville, from Mark Green running in the Middle Tennessee. These Republican congressional candidates and in East Tennessee candidates are going to help carry her, I think, ultimately across the goal line.
Is Bill Lee having any kind of organizational problems? He's missed some events. He had an embarrassing one in Murfreesboro. I thought he was going to show up and he didn't. Is he measuring the curtains too early for the governor's office?
I think that was a misstep of communications within his team, and I hope they've corrected whoever's in charge of the scheduling, making sure that they've actually written it down rather than just saying, oh yeah, we'll try to be there.
So is Bill Lee so popular, Larry, because people don't want somebody who's got experience in politics and government?
I think Bill Lee is popular because he is not a politician. I think most people, both parties, the whole universe, are sick and tired of a lot of the traditional politics that goes on, not only in Washington, but other places. And because Bill Lee does not have that background, that gives him a good 10% of the vote right there.
So doing another 95-county tour of all of the state is probably a good way for him to spend his time to build his base and maybe not to worry as much about making a mistake?
I don't think any of us think a 95-county tour is important or helpful at this stage of an election. Sure, he's got to see all across the state, but Lee needs to be focused on the heavy voting parts of the state. And as Steve just said, if he makes a mistake in the debate, that's going to come back to bite him. He's going to be in trouble if he makes a mistake.
And Carl Dean's problem is he was a liberal mayor in a blue county in a sea of red, and that's not going to translate very well. Of what Carl Dean did in Nashville is not going to convince conservative Democrats in rural Tennessee to vote for him.
Well, see, he was a conservative mayor is the problem, but that's just my opinion.
Everybody's to the right of you.
Well, the job experience for Phil Bredesen was a considered to be moderate to liberal mayor of Nashville in a sea of red at that time too, yet he got elected governor twice.
And had hundreds of millions of dollars. Now keep in mind, his first one, he barely beat Van Hillary thanks to a lot of Republicans, the same thing that's happening here, supporting Phil Bredesen because he was seen as more moderate than the conservative Van Hillary. His second race was basically a no contest race. The Republicans didn't put up a serious challenge. So his only winning race was by about 30,000
Larry,
votes.
as we close out, what would you tell Carl Dean to do? What specific issues or what specific tactics would you tell him to use at the debates to turn the race back in his direction?
Go into the debate with a central message, stay on that message the entire debate. Sure, you have to talk about other things, but I don't think his message has come through to the voters very well yet. And so he's got to focus on that.
Larry Woods, thank you for joining us. Steve Gill, thank you. Thanks. I'm sure it's going to be an interesting October, and we'll see what happens. May have you back before we vote. Who knows?
Look forward to it.
And thank you for joining us on Inside Politics. Hope you'll be back here again for a future show. If you can't get enough politics in the meantime, go to the News Channel 5 website. You'll find my Capitol View commentary. There's new commentary posted every Friday afternoon. Enjoy the rest of your weekend, and we'll see you back here next time. Goodbye.